Take a dollar bill out of your wallet. On its own, it's basically nothing. Just a printed piece of paper. A gold coin? That's just metal. Bitcoin? That's just code on a screen. And yet people spend their entire lives chasing these things. They work for them, save them, borrow them, fight over them, build whole economies around them. That should feel strange, because it is. Money is one of the weirdest ideas humans ever invented. It doesn't feed you, it doesn't warm you, it doesn't move a truck or power a city. And somehow it can still get you food, shelter, labor, fuel, almost anything. Why? Because money only works when enough people believe it works. And the moment that belief starts to weaken, money begins to change. It can still look the same. It can still sit in your account, but it stops feeling solid. And that is where this story begins. This is not just a video about coins, banknotes, or economic theory. It's really a video about one question. What actually gives money value? Why did gold work? Why did paper work? Why do digital balances work? And why do systems that look permanent suddenly become fragile? By the end of this video, you should understand three things. First, why money is not valuable simply because of what it's made of. Second, why trust matters more than material. And third, why money usually starts breaking before most people realize it's breaking. Because the real history of money is not the history of objects. It's the history of trust. Who creates it? Who protects it? Who abuses it? And what happens when people stop believing the promise? Most people are taught a very simple story. Long ago, people bartered. One person had grain, another had shoes, somebody else had goats. Barter was awkward, so eventually people invented money. It sounds neat, clean, almost too clean. And that's the problem. Real human exchange was rarely that simple. In many early societies, people lived inside systems of obligation, family obligation, village obligation, temple records, debts, promises, status, power, memory. You didn't always pay right away. Sometimes you owed someone. Sometimes someone owed you. Sometimes everybody already knew where they stood. That changes the picture. Money did not appear only because people wanted a more convenient way to trade. It appeared because larger societies needed a more reliable way to measure value, settle claims, coordinate strangers, and make trust move beyond face-to-face relationships. That's the first big shift. Money is not just a trade tool. It is a way of carrying trust through time, across distance, and between people who may not know each other at all. Once communities get large enough, memory is no longer enough. Personal reputation is no longer enough. Local obligation is no longer enough. You need something that lets strangers transact as if they already trust the same system. That's where money becomes necessary. For something to function as money, it's not enough for people to say it has value. It has to work in everyday life. People have to accept it, not in theory, in practice. They have to trust that other people will take it too. That's crucial. Something does not become money because you personally like it. It becomes money because you believe the next person will still accept it. It also has to move easily. You need to be able to transfer it, store it, divide it, and recognize it quickly. And it cannot be too easy to fake, corrupt, or create without limit. That's why money isn't magic. It's a structure. Break enough of that structure, and the system starts to wobble. If it's hard to divide, it becomes clumsy. If it's easy to fake, trust weakens. If too much of it can appear too quickly, confidence slips. And if people aren't sure others will still accept it tomorrow, then it starts dying today. That is why money works only when society keeps confirming, over and over again, that this thing, whatever form it takes, can safely carry value from one person to another. In that sense, money is less like a commodity and more like a shared operating system. So why gold? Why did one metal become one of history's great anchors of monetary trust? Not because ancient people were hypnotized by shiny things, and not because gold had some mystical destiny. Gold worked because it solved a difficult problem better than most alternatives. It was scarce. You couldn't just create more of it because you wanted more of it. It lasted. Gold doesn't rot, rust, or spoil. It was divisible, portable, recognizable, and maybe most important of all, it was hard to cheat. That matters more than people think. A society can trust a money more easily when it's difficult to counterfeit, difficult to multiply, and difficult to destroy. Gold did not eliminate fraud, but it resisted casual manipulation better than most things people had tried before. Then gold gained something even more powerful than its physical properties: prestige. Empires stored it, temples guarded it, rulers displayed it, traders accepted it across borders. So gold became more than a material. It became a civilizational signal. And once enough people believe something can hold value across place and time, it becomes easier for the next person to believe it too. That's how trust compounds. Gold was never perfect, but for long stretches of history, it was one of the strongest monetary promises humans had. Then comes the great monetary paradox. How do you move from metal to paper? Why would anyone exchange real goods for something that looks almost worthless on its own? The answer is simple, but deep. People were not trusting the paper itself. They were trusting the system behind the paper. At first, paper often represented a claim, a receipt, a note, a promise that value existed somewhere else and could be redeemed later. So paper money did not begin by replacing trust. It began by borrowing trust from something already trusted. That made it incredibly powerful. Paper was easier to move than metal, easier to count, easier to scale, easier to use inside growing states, banking systems, and trade networks. But paper only works when the surrounding structure holds. The issuer has to be credible. The legal system has to matter. The state has to have enough authority. Banks have to function. And people have to keep believing that the note in their hand is part of a system that will still exist tomorrow. That is the real lesson of paper money. It makes one truth impossible to ignore. Money is not really about substance. It is about organized confidence. A gold coin can feel trustworthy, partly because of what it is. A paper note can only feel trustworthy because of what stands behind it: power, law, institutions, habit, networks, memory, expectation. That is why paper money feels fragile to outsiders and completely normal to the people living inside the system, until it doesn't. So how does money begin to fail? Not only in spectacular collapses, not only in hyperinflation, not only when the headlines finally become impossible to ignore. It usually starts earlier than that. Money begins to weaken the moment people start doubting the promise behind it. If too much is being issued, or even if people suspect too much is being issued, trust slips. If convertibility breaks, trust slips. If the state looks weaker, less disciplined, or less credible, trust slips. If inflation keeps eating into daily life and people feel their paychecks buying less and less, trust slips again. And once people start moving towards something harder, gold, land, commodities, foreign currency, anything that feels safer, the system enters a more dangerous phase. Because money lives partly in expectation. If I believe the money I hold today will buy meaningfully less tomorrow, I behave differently today. I spend faster. I hedge sooner. I move earlier. And if enough people do that together, the decline in trust starts feeding itself. That is why money often dies first in confidence and only later in price. By the time the charts look catastrophic, belief has usually been eroding for a while. So the real warning sign is not just inflation itself. It's the moment people stop feeling protected by the system they used to trust. So what is the deeper lesson here? Money is not valuable because it is gold. It is not valuable because it is paper. It is not valuable because an app shows a number on a screen. Money is valuable because enough people believe the system around it will continue to function. That trust can attach itself to different forms: to metal, to to paper, to bank deposits, to digital money. But the form is never the whole story. Trust is always underneath it. And that means money is never purely economic. It is also psychological, social, political, institutional, even emotional. A monetary system can look rock solid for years while quietly depending on restraint, credibility, law, habit, and public confidence. That is why money feels permanent, right up until the moment it doesn't. And that is why arguments about money are never only about economics. They are about trust. Who earns it? Who protects it? Who spends it down? And what happens when a society realizes the old confidence is no longer automatic? So if you want to understand money, don't ask only what it is made of. Ask why people still believe in it. That is where the real answer lives. So what gives money value? Not paper by itself. Not metal by itself. Not code by itself. Money has value because people accept it, trust it, and expect other people to trust it too. That trust can come from scarcity, from law, from convertibility, from state power, from habit, from network effects, and sometimes from all of them at once. But when that trust weakens, money loses more than purchasing power. It begins to lose its social reality. And for most of human history, one form of money did an extraordinary job of locking trust into place: gold. So the next question is obvious. Why gold? Why did one metal become one of the strongest monetary anchors the world had ever seen? That is where we go next.